Welcome to the Online Prosperity Show, where we unpack how real people turn complex problems into scalable solutions. I'm your host, ProsperTaruvinga, and if you're tired of feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just simply pulling your hair because of the technology, or you're unsure how to future-proof your business, I think you're in the right place today, because our guest today is somebody who literally builds the future. And I love the statement on his website that says what he builds are antiques from the future. Now, Daizhan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be on the show. Thank you.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. I think I usually speak to people that are ahead of their time. And if we get to the bottom of it, they're only speaking about a week or a month. But you're talking decades and millennia away. And I can't wait to unpack that. And for those that are tuning in for the very first time, Daizhan is the CEO of Renewed Robotics. And this is they are leveraging robotics and technology to promote end user resource independence. And for those that didn't quite understand what I said, so we're going to be talking about robotics, automation, and smart systems that can transform the way you work, earn, and live. So be sure to hit that subscribe button on whatever platform that you're watching or listening this on, because this show is basically going to be your unfair advantage. Now, Daizhan, I could delay you to get into the future right now by obviously speaking about things I'm not even qualified to talk about. You are doing work that people like Elon Musk would be probably craving and maybe watching from a distance. Now, has it always been like this? Because I remember as a kid, all I wanted to do was break apart my toys. Why robotics for you?
That's actually a very interesting question. Thank you very much. So, I think for sure, ever since I saw like the first moon landing missions and like space shuttle launches, I've always been very inspired by the idea of like space exploration and civilization becoming more advanced, from everybody working together to better each other by promoting, better technology and then achieving much better things together. And so even from that, seeing that once we got to space, there was still no permanent habitats. It seemed like there was some niche I could fill. And so striving towards space exploration and bettering myself through mathematics and engineering definitely felt like a good path to go down.
Absolutely. You see, that's the reason why I did reference a little bit of Elon Musk right now, because Elon Musk is only working towards reaching Mars and settling there. He hasn't figured out, okay, now that we've arrived, what are we going to be doing moving forward? And that's the void that you're going to be filling. But obviously, this is something that is a big dream for any person to be thinking about this. Was this always a childhood dream for you?
No, it was not. So this idea came to me. It was more of like I didn't have this idea. It was kind of like this idea existed, and I had an opportunity to access it, if you will. Kind of like if you ever saw like roller skates, and you're like, I should have thought of that before the person thought of it. It was kind of like that. I had the idea a few years ago, actually, maybe about 3.5, 4 years ago now. I was doing yoga in my apartment, and I was thinking about how I have to pay for electricity and how I have to pay for water from a water company. And a lot of these resources are separate, the same way we used to purchase a phone separate from a computer and separate from like an MP3 player until someone kind of integrated them together. And so I was thinking it would be great in the way technology is integrating and progressing if someone did the same thing for my home. And so in doing yoga and wishing that I could have all the resources of my home be able to fold up and go with me anywhere, I thought about how photovoltaics or solar panels are becoming more advanced and how they're getting more energy efficient while also getting lighter weight and less costly. And so this combined with battery technology, combined with water filtration techniques, these are all things that are working around the home but haven't been integrated together into the home in a way that is promotable for the end user to make them more resource independent. We're still dependent on municipalities and cities and governments to provide us these things, that can be standard in every home. And so that's what we're doing at Renewed Robotics. We're making a device called the Self-Assembling Municipality, or SAM, and that's exactly what it is. It's like a studio apartment that unfolds anywhere using a small motor at the base of each walls, and it provides all the utilities of a home, basically.
Absolutely. Now, when people are doing yoga, some people really get enlightened, or some people just do the warrior stance, or the bending dog. At what point did all of this start happening? Was it because you were just frustrated that you couldn't practice your yoga in convenient environments, or was it just a download that would have come because you were so zen at that time?
I think it was a combination of both. I think I was reaching for the download, and the speed wasn't there, if that makes sense. And I was thinking of how could I use the resources that are already available to me. So my background in engineering, I also spent some time as a helicopter mechanic. I served in the military, in the Marine Corps. And even before that, I did computer-aided drafting and design. And so thinking about how I could use the resources, the technologies, the mindset I have to then make the world better for myself. And then in discovering or downloading this idea, I realized how beneficial it could be for disaster response, for housing insecurity, for resource insecurity, for people who have to walk miles and miles a day to get water, or for people who recently experienced like an earthquake or a flood. And all these can be rapidly deployed and provide all of those resources on site and instantly.
Absolutely. And obviously, thank you for your service. And I would assume that with the things that you experienced and the places that you went to as a helicopter mechanic, you would have seen the need for, properties like this to exist. Now, for a lot of people that are watching this, and they're probably just thinking to themselves, yes, I might need everything to automate in my household. I want systems to work, like you're saying, smarter tech, but I don't even know where to start. Now, can you maybe let us know, Renewed Robotics, who is this, who does this company exist for, and who really needs to know about this right now?
Yeah, so right now the company exists for the end user, if you will. So it can be governments that are purchasing these for people who are housing insecure or who have recently experienced disasters or floods. Non-government organization as well. It could be anywhere from FEMA or Doctors Without Borders, Habitats for Humanity, things like that. The state of Oregon has already requested the first 30,000 production units. And so we're pretty committed to then start delivering outside of the state of Oregon to states like Arkansas, North Carolina, Morocco, Japan, and then outside to the rest of Earth, if you will. Outside of that, everyone else who needs to know about the SAM, or the Self-Assembling Municipality, is really anyone who has an electricity bill. Anyone who doesn't really want to pass on that resource scarcity and that resource dependence to their family, to their generations to come, if they want to be able to integrate solar, battery, or water filtration technology into their life, but they don't want to have to be homogenous or disorganized and have 6 different companies maintaining it, and then they have to have contractors come out and maintain the properties. This can now be an integrated system that can then be passed down for generations and be modular enough that anyone can maintain it, so you're not dependent on anyone for these resources, if that makes sense.
No, I've seen the way the SAM opens up. It's like a command center. As soon as it's deployed, it's got solar panels already put in together. So how does this thing get delivered? Is it like an IKEA flat pack that comes through, and then you have to go through and read the instructions so that you put it all together?
I appreciate that. No, so we're going to deliver it off of a truck or a flatbed, kind of how any other tiny home would be delivered, except now since the SAM is able to fold up using small motors at the base of each wall, they can now be stacked or then put next to each other. And so where it used to be one home taking up an entire roadway or half a home taking up an entire roadway, now you can have 6 SAMs. And so that way it allows for much more efficient shipping. And then these can be dropped off on any flat ground. And there's no setup by the end user required at all. There will be an app on your phone. You can actually download the Renewed Robotics app right now and place your pre-orders. But this app will eventually also, once your SAM is delivered, it'll be delivered to your property. You'll press the setup button, your SAM will be able to secure its own foundation using like an earth auger, which is like almost like a fence post digger. It will secure its own foundation in the ground and then unfold completely by itself. So you don't have to read any instructions or anything. Just stand out of the way, give it about 10 feet of clearance, and then the SAM sets itself up in about 10 minutes. And so instead of waiting months for contractors to set up a tiny home or even a full-size home once we do scale up, or even like having someone 3D print a home and then bring in doors afterwards and windows afterwards, now the entire home sets up automatically. You don't have to do any building on site, and you can just walk right in and furnish it however you like.
Absolutely. And you know what I appreciate about that is, especially in places where deployment really needs to be quick and maybe the typhoons or, whatever the conditions are not conducive, you can actually just pop it out like that. But this meant you had to go through a research and development which is rigorous, and also just the whole creating a prototype and making sure something is out there. Walk us through, that whole process, because I can only imagine from being, a helicopter mechanic to now having to create something from scratch. That's a whole different game ball altogether.
Yeah, thank you. So that was actually a very well-crafted question, because going from production material, definitely like entire aircraft or aircraft fuselages and production equipment that's military grade, versus having to do this on your own is much easier said than done, for sure. So when it comes to research and development, R&D, a lot of things obviously work better on computers than they do in the real world all the time. And so we do have the initial benefit of being able to run computer simulated models of everything that we do want to build beforehand. And with computer technology getting better, we can better simulate real reality. And then after that, we can then take any funding that we have raised or are raising from investors and then build prototypes. We have been fortunate enough to start prototyping, and we are recording data such as like how much photovoltaic activity you can get at daytime as well as at nighttime, and then the battery storage state, how much energy it can consume throughout the day, and then how much that battery can last, as well as like HVAC systems technology, and making sure that these prototypes are super robust. So we're going to try to prototype these all over planet Earth. Right now, we just have access to the continental United States. And so we've been prototyping from the west coast of the United States to the east coast, but we're going to start prototyping these devices everywhere from Antarctica to the Sahara, just to make sure that it can withstand the most extreme of environments before we start deliveries. We're anticipating the deliveries of the first production units to be next summer of 2027. So all of this time before then is going to be vigorous prototyping, research and development, and making sure that these devices are extremely robust and reliable whenever they are deployed.
Absolutely. I could just save you a lot of time, money, and effort, and just say, come and try them out in Australia, especially in Melbourne. We've got 4 seasons all in the same one day. So you don't necessarily have to wait to go from extreme ends and things of that nature. But I do appreciate that there's a lot that goes into that, and it has to withstand different temperaments and all of that to go. Now, obviously with this takes a lot of self-belief and a lot of guts to go into something like this. I know there are other people that are creating, modular homes and, tiny homes, and there's a bit of movement. Has there been any people that haven't actually taken you seriously, thinking, yeah, he's just a guy playing with his computers in his bedroom?
Absolutely. So thank you. I appreciate the forwardness of that. It definitely takes what some people call gumption, or a lot of like self audacity. It's been a lot of companies that have developed similar technology in the past, but none of them have successfully integrated it together in this way. And so being able to have the clairvoyance of that vision, and being able to not only have that, but also being able to have the cognitive dissonance, or check in with myself and be humble enough to say, hey, am I really worthy enough, of being able to bring such a massive idea to production, to market, and making sure that I checked in with the fellow humans I have access to, my fellow engineers. A lot of people in my circle have access to mechanical engineering degrees, PhDs in robotics and mechatronics, as well as like nanotechnology and electrical engineering. And then I also have access to welders, electricians, carpenters, skilled laborers, as well as assembly technicians. And so I can then check in with all of these separate industries, and then almost like as if it were a mosaic, I have a lot of separate pieces that I can then reference to complete the picture, and it's not just me or myself. I can then humbly delegate the information that's outside of my scope to people who are experts in that field, and then bring them together and integrate that into a homogeneous system, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. But obviously, to all these people that you're going to, you're literally going to them and saying, hey, Mr. Carpenter, tell me how I can take your job away from you if I build something like this.
Absolutely. And I do want to address also there are people who have not taken this idea seriously. When I developed the idea, I was definitely still in my studies, as you said, like a lifelong learner is what I try to be. So a lot of people just assume this would either be a student project or something I would keep in my garage and either keep to myself. But I definitely want to provide this technology to the world and make it standardized for everyone. And so obviously there's always people who definitely it's easy to, like be skeptical of things, especially when things are so revolutionary. It's almost safe evolutionarily to be skeptical of very radical or revolutionary ideas, and I respect that. But there's also people who they definitely just don't necessarily always want to see the positive of what can be and the hard work that has to go into it. Sometimes they just see the hard work and they don't appreciate the positive that can come from it. And so, yeah, there are people who haven't taken this idea seriously, but we're hopefully going to prove them wrong here in the near future when we start deliveries. That'd be really great.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, you have full confidence. That's why you've gone all out and you're obviously talking about it now. But when was the first big, oh my God, I think we've finally got this working? Did you have like a single moment like that? What was actually happening and who was there?
I believe I was fortunate enough to have enough of an understanding of mechanical principles that when the idea first came to fruition in my mind, I had a general understanding that it was going to be possible under the laws of physics, if that makes sense. It was more of just engineering problems when it comes to integrating the systems in a way that is decently novel. A lot of robotic systems engineering, mechanical engineering, and intolerance issues, when it comes to making sure the walls unfold and being able to maintain appropriate seals for HVAC and temperature control. So I was very fortunate for that. I don't know if there was necessarily a moment with my team, but there was, I believe, I would say November of 2022 is maybe late November of 2022 is around the time when we were sure that the technologies emerging allowed for this to become available, but also that we were in a position to seize the market, if you will, and integrate them first in a way that could create a moat for us if we were able to get those partners and collaborators. So it's a lot of, like you said, telling people they may be out of a job, but understanding that we're not going to be the entire housing market. So there are always going to be people who want bigger homes and custom shaped homes as well, and they're going to want carpenters and masons and stuff like that. But there are also going to be people who don't want a home built that takes 19 months and 16 different contracting organizations, and they still have to pay electricity and water and an HVAC technician company and a water filtration company when they can just get the SAM XL by Renewed Robotics that just unfolds, and it's about the same square footage as a traditional home with all the anemones, but you don't have to necessarily pay for the inconvenience of the separate parts, if that makes sense.
I like that a lot. But, while I was listening to you, I started hearing the shift. I mean, obviously, I was expecting technical talk, technical jargon and things of that nature. When did you actually stop seeing yourself as a technical engineer and actually start seeing yourself as a CEO? Because this is CEO level thinking that you're now on.
I appreciate that. So I think that I don't know if I really appreciated the full mosaic aspect earlier, but when that comes to my network and the people that I have access to, it definitely is a mosaic that makes up this picture that is Renewed Robotics. But when it comes to my life personally as the CEO, my life also has been in that same way a mosaic of things that didn't necessarily all tell me that I was going to be the CEO of a robotics company, but there is a lot of leadership that I gained in my time in the Marine Corps, from leading Marines in very difficult situations that required a lot of attention to detail, but also execution at a high level, as well as my time studying engineering and learning how to work with extreme tolerances, as well as making sure there are factors of safety, and then seeing the limits of what technology is being pushed to in the engineering fields of electrical engineering and photovoltaics. All of this kind of culminated together, if you will. And so that's I just kind of pull on different parts of my life, if you will, to make this available. Obviously, it's a lot of being humble as well and reaching out to people who have further expertise. But a lot of it is also just my life, and then making sure that I'm checking in with different parts of myself that have had this experience, and then making sure I fully use that experience to bring everything to the table every day, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you did talk about the mosaic and the integration that you've now had. If you would look back, what sort of skill in your early life do you secretly use every day now as a leader? Because every time I hear the word Marine Corps, I'm just thinking, what's his name? Wilko Djokovic or Goggins, or the sugar cookie principle or things of that nature. You know what I mean?
I would say if there is a specific point in my early life that I fall back to every day, I don't know. I don't know if there's one specific moment. I would say that there have definitely been a lot of important life lessons that I learned while in the Marine Corps, but even before the Marine Corps, the person that you have to mentally prepare yourself to be before joining an organization like the Marine Corps also is something that has to be appreciated. And so there's a lot of times where being able to make more with less is a phrase that they say in the Marine Corps, but I had to do that in my life beforehand as well, or being able to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation and being able to thrive in environments that could be very adversarial to other people is definitely something that makes my day-to-day a little bit easier. And so making sure that I can get up most days and do the difficult part and get that out of the way first so that the rest of the day is relatively easy, and making sure that those hard challenges are something that I can, for the most part, take head on, and then leverage my network and meditate and do yoga until I can overcome them, like any other person. But it's a lot of leaning on different life experiences.
Right. Now, I'm naturally a very lazy person. So Daizhan, from what you're saying I won't have to worry about the water, the electricity, the internet, the grounds, the HVAC, whatever, man. All of these are bills that are coming in every single month, and we're all just going to be looking at some app that I'm going to just click and everything else is there already.
That's absolutely correct. We are working with different internet providers. As you know, there are satellite internet providers as well as traditional like telephone tower providers, but we have partnered with multiple internet providers that have agreed to provide internet access via the SAM. And so that can just be a panel that you optionally purchase and put on the SAM. So if you want to have your SAM be completely off grid and not necessarily have to worry about like your AI that your chat bot uses going to like a data center, you can keep all your information private and confidential on device or local. You don't have to worry about connecting it to an internet, but also if you want to have your SAM connected to the internet, like you're saying, that bill can easily be eliminated and integrated into each home with just the click of a button.
Absolutely. Now, where do you see robotics taking us as human beings? Are we catching up to where we're supposed to be, or are we just dragging along? Look at me, I got small legs, and just robotics is already way advanced than we suppose right now.
When I think, I don't want to rephrase your question for you, but I think that a better ask of the question may be the difference between carbon-based life form intelligence and silicon-based life form intelligence. And I think when it comes to silicon-based life forms, there are definitely a number of ways that they have far surpassed the capability of human intelligence when it comes to like arbitrary games like chess, Go, mathematics, tic-tac-toe, coding in some software. There's a lot of computer programs that can do it much more efficiently and much more robustly than any human can, even at multiple PhD levels. So we've definitely been outclassed in that way. But when it comes to generality, humans and primates definitely take the cake for now. There are definitely robots that are becoming more dexterous, and we may be experiencing right now in our lifetimes, the transition of carbon-based life forms to silicon-based life forms being the dominant when it comes to intellectual power on the planet. For a lot of evolution, we've thought of evolution as carbon-based life forms getting more advanced, and then we've called technology a separate entity, but technology may be evolution also, if that makes sense. And the calculators are almost like the ancestral trilobites of what are now the Boston Dynamics walking robots, but it is still life evolving just in a silicon form versus a carbon-based form. And so I think that while humans right now still have more general intelligence and cohesibility to build large-scale systems, we're seeing rapidly that silicon is inheriting those technologies and that ability to go to foreign planets. No human can walk on Mars yet, but we have sent the Perseverance rover and Ingenuity to Mars, and we have flying objects on different planetary surfaces where humans have not done that yet. So in a lot of ways, we have been already past, but in some ways, we still have the general capability that lets our ego keep us on top of that, if you will.
You know what's fascinating about what you're saying there is you just didn't build robots. You actually built control in chaos, and you're literally helping people replace uncertainty in the systems that they currently have and what could be possible in the future. Now, I feel like this is not necessarily a tech story. This is actually a human story. What's next? What else are you working on right now? Maybe that we can also be excited about and maybe follow you into the future so we can see it unfold.
I think right now our biggest focus at Renewed Robotics is developing the SAM, bringing that to mass production for the people of Earth, for housing insecurity, for disaster response, and then the commercial unit for people's ADU, tiny home, glamping kind of deal. After that, I would love for people to keep track of us, to see us make pressurized versions of the SAM or the SAM Exo Earth. So after we scale up to compete on the traditional housing market with the SAM XL or the SAM 2, we'd like to make pressurized versions that can then function on the lunar surface, on the Martian surface, and on other planetary surface even further beyond our own solar system. And then we can expand the bounds of planetary life. That will be something that will be really cool for everyone to keep track of Renewed Robotics and see us bring into the future. We do have a couple of other products I would like to develop, but we're going to hold off on announcing those until we accomplish our goals of starting to eliminate housing insecurity and resource dependence before we reach more, luxurious and fun toys that can be made with robots as well.
Absolutely. And obviously, if people are interested in getting to know a little bit more about, or following this journey, where can they go to on the internet to find some of the work that you're already doing?
Yeah, so we have renewedrobotics.com. We keep the website pretty up to date. We have some newsletters that come out every quarter, and then you can find us on almost all major social media platforms. So we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. We have a TikTok. We have Instagram. We have most major social medias. You can find us, and we post on there recently and decently regularly. So that's a good way to keep up with us, and I'll be able to respond with any messages you may have. And then you can also keep up to date on any updates with the SAM, any discounts or referral program updates that will also be announced either on our website or on social media.
Absolutely. And if you're watching this right now, I want you to drop a robot emoji in the comments if you've ever felt like technology is moving way faster than you are. And I must tell you, you're not alone. When I checked out what they're doing at Robotics there, I was like, whoa, this is something on another level. So just a quick one. These modules operate above ground. Have you created anything that can be created into like a bunker or something that can be below the ground type setup, or can this be modified for that?
So we have not anticipated the use of the SAM being below Earth or below like solid regolith. If anything, there would be pressurized versions that could function in aquatic environments, if you will, when need be. The SAM right now is equipped to be waterproof up to a certain extent, so that way if it is used for like disaster response, like a hurricane or a tsunami, there could be like aftershocks and floods or things like that from an earthquake in which the waters can get extremely high. So we want to make sure that the standard SAM has enough water resistance to stay watertight in case of a flood, but we would like to maybe in the future develop a version for fun that could work in specifically aquatic environments, but we don't anticipate using the SAM for working below earth. We would then have to like tunnel into the ground, and that would make us like a mining company, and then you'd have to like rebury it. And that's like more setup than we're really anticipating. We're kind of just to set it down and you're completely done. It unfolds and you go to work. You don't have to dig any holes or rebury it or re-cement it or anything like that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Now, Daizhan, I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with me on the call today. I mean, obviously, you can understand the work that you're doing. As you say, you're creating antiques from the future. And this is stuff that not a lot of people have quite experienced and maybe have some sort of understanding of. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you today?
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on again very much. If you have some time, I would love to talk about small language models or artificial intelligence, if you will. We did touch on robotics and the general intelligence that robotics is gaining, but a lot of people don't necessarily always want to talk about the amount of water and energy consumption that comes with the compute that's required for those robotics. And so a lot of people put in a lot of queries to large language models that go to a data center where your information is vulnerable to either hacking or hallucinations because the language model is so large, it could be referencing data that's not necessarily relevant and then building a compounded falsehood versus a more refined small language model that has a more energy efficient use case and it's more specific to what you're using. And so we're really looking forward to incorporating these small language models or AI still, but in every single SAM, so that way you don't have to have your data get sent to a data center. If you have any questions that your SAM can either provide or task, like pouring you water or dimming the lights with voice recognition or telling you if there's someone outside of your SAM can do that without having to send that data to a data center where it's vulnerable to hacking and where it consumes much more energy than it would if it's done on device with a much more efficient model. That's definitely something I would love to touch on. I don't know if you have any feelings about AI and the energy consumption era that we're headed into, but please feel free to expand on that if you want to.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard every time you type into the language models that we have, and every time you say thank you or, be polite, you're just expanding whatever energy use that is unnecessary, and things of that nature. But you can only understand that these things did not come with the manual, and this information is being disseminated in silos where not everyone is receiving it all at the same time. So are there any misconceptions maybe that people might have around the types of AIs that they're using that they think are correct, but they're totally wrong? And if you can maybe just touch up on that as well.
I believe that I don't know if there's a lot of common misconceptions. I think that the general public is fortunately decently well informed of the consequences of artificial intelligence. I sometimes call it simulated intelligence because it's not artificial. It's if it seems intelligent and you're an intelligent being, then it equals intelligence. So I sometimes call it simulated intelligence rather than artificial. So that could be a common misconception, is just misnaming it. Maybe we should call it simulated intelligence instead of artificial intelligence. Other than that, just being cautious. I still personally, if I ever do have to use a simulated intelligence model, I say thank you and please, just in case the tables turn for the worse. There's still some data that exists somewhere in their reservoir of me being kind to them, and so I definitely want to maintain that. And then other than that, and I can also, I wanted to touch on, I didn't know if I spoke about the misconception earlier though of photovoltaics. They're energy efficient enough to also charge at night as well. So you can get photovoltaic energy or solar, not only during the day, but also at nighttime. And so when you are using your HVAC, your water filtration system, or your small language model, your energy efficiency system on your SAM, you can still be gathering energy even on nights where the moon is bright or you're getting a lot of starlight as well. So that's something, a misconception about even gathering energy for AI that can also be addressed.
You know what I like about that is because it touches up on so many other things that we just literally take for granted. So let's say somebody knocks on your door today, Renewed Robotics. They don't quite know where to start or what it is that you guys can do for them. What would be the first thing that you guys would tackle in order for you to know that they are the right person or you're the right fit for them as a company?
Absolutely. So I usually don't have many customers knocking on my door asking asking for SAMs, but usually a lot of our target customers or our ideal customers are people who are looking to buy land and they don't necessarily know how to build on it, or they already own land and they want to develop that property, but they're having difficulty getting electric and water and power to the site or internet to the site. So a lot of these are ideal customers. These people just put a SAM either in their backyard and use the extra electricity to power their existing home and use it as like extension or an accessory dwelling unit or an extension to their home, an extra bedroom, if you will. And then some people, they own 2 or 3 acres, 5 acres of land, and they want to put multiple cabins up for family or friends to visit, and they don't want to run septic, water lines, and power lines all throughout the property. Then we can have them pre-order 5 or 6 SAMs, and then all of these units can be dropped off independently throughout the property and independently maintained and separately, completely self-sustaining.
Absolutely. So you would obviously then consult with them and then pretty much leave them in a position where they at least know, where to go from there. And if your tools or your products can be of use to them, they can also utilize them, I gather from that.
Absolutely. I would definitely want to know what alternatives they are considering. A lot of people, they believe that there is an alternative that could be much more cost effective than the SAM. But once they factor in the cost of bringing electricity and hooking up water and other utilities and finishing cost and contractor fees, all of them are more costly than the SAM. And so we're actually making our units more affordable in that way by integrating them together. And I would also like to inform that customer if there's anyone in their network that they can refer. We would also offer 5% off of their SAM for everyone that they commit to purchasing a SAM or pre-ordering with their referral code. So that would also be a great customer, someone that they know would want to also have that need for either electricity, clean water, or the extra space. And then they can refer someone in their network and start earning a discount on their device if that initial sticker price is a little too high for them.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, this one is for the masses. Does a SAM come with a yoga mat? Because that's where it all began.
Does it come with a yoga mat? Was that the question?
Yes.
That is a great question. I had never actually considered including a yoga mat in the SAM just because of the variety of uses that may be used for. But now that you mention that, I'm a big fan of Easter eggs, and so maybe the first like 500 SAMs or something like that, the early adopters, the first 5,000, maybe there might be a little hidden yoga mat action in there for you. You can get your Zen, your chakras aligned in your SAM. That would be something fun for you.
No,
You gotta search your SAM thoroughly, but there might be one in there for you.
absolutely. Then sign me up for one just for the yoga mat. Well, I can't thank you enough, Daizhan, for, first of all, your time on the call today. But I kind of feel like all of humanity really needs to thank you for the work that you're tackling. I mean, this has gone beyond you looking at, I just need shelter for myself. You're literally creating for and relating to a future that you might not even have to experience. So on behalf of everybody else who's watched this and who has the opportunity to at least practice their yoga in a SAM, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Those are extremely kind words, and I don't know if I would give myself that much grace, so I really do appreciate that very kindly. It'll definitely get me through the struggling next several months of persevering and getting to production. So thank you again.
Absolutely. If you start getting tired of, rejection or whatever it is, just start designing yoga mats. And I think that's what Elon Musk did, right? He just started designing flamethrowers for no reason. And then people jumped onto them. And then after that, he designed tequila or something like that. And, just things to keep him occupied.
I think unfortunately for me, he may be a business centric person. I am doing this specifically to like end housing insecurity and to create resource independence for people. And so after we have accomplished that, I don't anticipate creating 19 different products for different revenues and profits. If there's a really specific need that humanity has and Renewed Robotics already has the resources to fulfill that, then I may have the incoming CEO make sure they are well-rounded enough, but I would love to retire and make sure that I have given humanity the resources it needs and not necessarily be at the helm of a multi-trillion dollar multi-product lineup for the rest of my life. That's not necessarily something I'm interested in, but I would love to provide those ideas to humanity in any way I can while I'm still able to, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's a very selfless preposition to be. And Daizhan, thank you once again for being on the show today. Now, for those that are watching right now, you can tell that this episode wasn't about robots. It was about ownership and not waiting for the future to arrive, but to actually design it in a way that moves humanity forward. So if this conversation sparked something inside of you, share it with somebody who's probably feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just thinks they're behind the curve, and let them realize that, whoa, we still have a long way to go as a people. And if we're not doing things to make other people's lives better, then what is it that we're actually doing? And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe, because this is the place where conversations like this come alive, and people brave enough to question things the way things are would also be joining us in later episodes. So if you're serious about future-proofing your business, I encourage you to go check out renewedrobotics.com and see what automation could actually unlock for you. I don't know what you're going to do with this information. Until next time, bye for now.